I'm coming home. We'll stay up till morning and head out exploring, make up for months that we've missed.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Veronica. In today's video, I'm going to be doing my bullet journal setup for January. Now, a lot of you might be coming from my last video, which was my 2020 bullet journal setup, and you could kind of see a glance of what I did here. I just wanted to split those two videos up just so they weren't super long together, this way you can have two shorter videos, and also if people are just looking for a January setup, they can just come to this video. So this month's theme is going to be kind of like mountains and pine trees. So I'm going to start with my cover page. And on here you can see I'm going to start out by sketching it out kind of with a pencil. I like to sketch stuff out with a pencil first, just so that I know kind of the general layout for where I want things to be. And then I can always erase it later. I usually erase a good amount of it, but just enough so that I can still kind of see some of the lines so I know where everything kind of is. Then I'm going in with one of my watercolor paint brushes, and I'm just going to add in just a little bit of blue. This doesn't have to be perfect, this is for the pine trees, but I'll be going over it with one of my gel pens to give it more definition. I'm also going to add in just a couple little stars around the page as well. Then once the watercolor was all dried, I went in with a pen and started to draw the mountains. Then once I finished drawing the lines for the mountain, I try to shade it a little bit on the side just to give it a little bit more depth. And then once I finished the mountain, I just went down to start on the pine trees. Once I got a good amount of the drawing finished, I went back in with my pencil and just erased all of those pencil lines that were still showing. Then for January, I traced that out. Then I thickened some of the sides of some of the letters just to give it more of a calligraphy look. If you guys had watched my last bullet journal video, in there I kind of explained how I make this look a little bit more like calligraphy. You could just go in and thicken all of the sides of the letters, which would help make it look more like calligraphy, but what I actually do is I look at the writing and I try and decide where I would have been going down with my pen, and that's where I thicken the sides. You can kind of see me do this on here where I look and I go and I follow where it would be going down and then I thicken it. And that's how an actual calligraphy pen would work. So then that is it for my cover page for January. And then moving on, we're going to do my month page. So my video cut out for me, so you guys don't get to see the beginning of me tracing out all of these cubes. But what I pretty much did was I just found out what my spacing was going to be, and I think I did an inch by inch for each one of these squares, and then I just filled out the page. Once I had the squares all finished, I then numbered them. And then up in the corner, I wrote January. I started out by doing it with a pencil just to kind of get an idea of how long it needed to be and where it needed to be. I feel like when I use a pencil, I make less mistakes because you can kind of see as far as spacing where things will go. Now for the word January, instead of filling in the lines when I went to thicken up the sides, I just kept them hollow. Then on the side, I made 2 boxes, one for to do and one for goals. And then these will be the things I need to get done in the month and the goals that I have for that month. Then below that, I had a little space, so I just wrote out notes the same way that I had done January. And then I'll have that little space for notes, for little things that happen throughout the month or little things I need to remember. At the bottom, keeping with the theme, I decided to draw out some more mountains and some more trees. I wanted to incorporate more blue into this theme than just at the bottom, so I ran my watercolor paintbrush along the side of the to-do list and the goals list. Normally I'd recommend you do this before you have everything written out because you can see at one part it starts to kind of bleed in. And then that is it for my monthly setup. Moving on, we're going to do my weekly setup. Now, I'll have to do 4 of these for this month, but I actually started out as more of like this week that I'm posting this and not the first week of January since I'm kind of late. I didn't really see a reason to make that week since I'm not going to be filling it out. I mean, you could do it if you had like things you wanted to look back and remember that were that week that you did, and you could fill it out now for like then, but it's not really a big deal for me since this is more for me to plan like now and not so much a memory thing. I do want to get better at filling out my bullet journals as far as like things that I can look back and see and have it as like a record, but for that I wasn't too worried. So how I'm going to be filling this month out is I'm going to be doing 8 boxes, and I just did this by doing 4 on each page. 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom. And when I made these, I left the top of the top box open and the bottom of the bottom box open. And this is just because I wanted to write out the day of the week in cursive and then attach it to the box. And I did Monday through Sunday, and then the last box I made for next week. I always like having a spot for things for next week because when I'm sitting and I'm planning out my week, sometimes I find things that, oh, I want to get done, but I don't have time for them for this week. So I'll just put them on the next week tab, even if they're not necessarily going to be next week, and they might be like the following week. It's just a way for me to put those aside, especially if I don't have the next weekly setup finished already. Then on the bottom, I designated 2 spots with the watercolor, and I'm gonna have to let that dry, so I'm going over and I'm drawing another little mountain with pine trees. I like to get all of my watercolor done at the same time, that way it can dry, and then it's all dry and I can go over and do all of the gel pen stuff at the same time. And then the watercolor paint was all dry, so I went back and filled out the 2 spots. They're gonna be for goals and to do. This is what I find that I use the most as far as a weekly spread. It's just a spot for each day and then a spot for goals and to do. So I have a spot for each day of the week, like I said, and then I'll fill those out throughout the week. I might put like the date in there if I want. Otherwise, it's usually just like appointments, birthdays, and things I have to get done. Then I've got a spot for next week, a spot for goals and to do, and then finally like my little inspiration section with the quote and the art. Then going back, we have my monthly setup, which is just the big calendar just to fill out, and then a to-do list and a goals, and then a little notes. Honestly, that's all I need. Sometimes I feel like I have all of these trackers all over the page and it's just like, I don't fill all of it out, and it's like I never use it all. So I'm definitely trying to be more minimalistic and more realistic with what I'm actually going to use, and then just stick to that. And then we have the cover page for January, which I really love how it turned out. It's so cute. And then that is it for this month's setup. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up down below and leave any comments for future ideas for setups if you have any. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!